Good morning. It is day 2 of the Christmas Advent Calendar podcast. I am excited to welcome on a dear friend and powerhouse of a woman in the property industry. Some of you may know her as the founder of one of the fastest growing podcasts for female property business owners. I have the founder and director of the Girls in Property podcast with me today. Athena Dobson is a thriving property investor and a dynamic community leader. She made a swift transition from a high-paying corporate job to a full-time property investment in just under a year. And as CEO of the Girls in Property, she is dedicated to uniting, inspiring, and empowering women in the property and finance sector through her podcast, community, and events. In a sector still largely dominated by men, she is driven to help women make informed investment decisions that align with their lifestyle goals, and here today to give her words of wisdom as we open the Advent calendar door to tip 2 to support you ahead of 2026. Today I am joined by Athena. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas. I finally get you back on my podcast because earlier on in the year, I had the pleasure of coming onto the Girls in Property podcast. And now you are on mine. Welcome.
Thank you. I know, I'm super excited. The thing is, me and you could talk for hours and hours. So hopefully today what we've got to do is just give loads of golden nuggets and just have some fun. I mean, I can't believe, are we allowed to say like Happy Christmas with it being so early into the 2nd of December?
100%. The trees went up at the weekend. Like, we're fully in December mode. We've got this. We can say Happy Christmas.
I love it. Chocolate advent calendars, the lot.
And with it being day 2 today, we are here to talk about advice, tips, value for women to take into 2026. But I want the listeners, I know how amazing you are. When I met you in the summer and we instantly just put the world to right and gel, but I want everyone to know you. Tell us who Athena is.
Okay, my goodness, I'll give it a go. So my name's Athena Dobson and I am the founder of Girls in Property. So this is for any woman who is looking to get into property, finance, construction and business as well, as of course property is a business at the end of the day, which we're going to be talking about more today. My main passion is travel. So I used to be a premium travel consultant for 7 years of my life. COVID hit back in March 2020, and as a result of that, I literally was furloughed overnight. I lost my job. Boris came on the screen, told us all to stay at home, and literally this well-paid, secure job where I relied on one source of income, did what everyone told me to do, get a job, go up through the ranks, just gone in the click of a fingers. So as I was doom scrolling through Facebook one day, I came across a property education company, which was a 2-day online course for £99. I did the course, I did a lot of free education, and then I actually took all of my savings, which people told me not to do. They said, no, save it for a rainy day. And I said, no, I'm going to go invest in my future. And I went and bought my first ever buy-to-let, my first ever property in Bournemouth, which I still have to this day. And then I went through learning all these different strategies, such as rent to rent and cash flowing strategies and managing properties. And I was actually able to replace my income through property in just under a year. So
phenomenal.
I think I did it in about 11 months and so many days, but it was just under the 12 mark because that was my goal. I set myself a goal. And it's really interesting because I've gone through lots of different types of business ideas and lots of different types of notions of it, as it were. And so I'd love to really help the listeners today to really, really try and understand that, because of course I went from doing and starting this property business to then learning about the fact that there was no women within this industry. People always ask me the question, Athena, why did you start Girls in Property? And the reason is because the first networking event I ever went to, there was 45 people in the room and only 3 were women, including myself. Yeah. And I remember feeling really timid and really shy. And I thought to myself, and I know this for a fact, that if any other woman or a lot of other women, they would have just left that day and not returned back in. Whereas I went in and even I felt out of place, and I'm a fairly confident person. I remember thinking to myself, right, I want to find a property network for women. I want to find a female podcast for women within the property space. Back in 2022, when I was doing this, there was absolutely no female property networks for women in the property sector, no female podcasts for properties. There was one in New Zealand, but none in the UK. So we started the first ever Girls in Property podcast January 15th, 2023. And it's just reached 50,000 downloads. We're on 134 episodes, and I host that, and I have done every single Monday ever since I began, and I absolutely love it. And I've built this community, events, everything now, so it's fabulous.
I love it. And I'm so proud to be part of that gorgeous community. You are such a powerhouse. And I think having women like you in the industry is so important, because there are so many women out there that want to start businesses in property, but because property is such a wide scope, and obviously I know with being in it for the last 15 years that there's so many different endless opportunities, but it also can be really daunting coming into the world of property and not understanding terminology, what options are. And obviously today we're going to talk about business and give those tips and values. So what would your first piece of advice be for women for 2026 that would be looking to get into property off all of your kind of learnings and knowledge that you've had over the last kind of 6 years?
So advice for women getting into property specifically, what I would say is that we believe, because this is what we've been taught, that we immediately need to jump into education. So I see a lot of women, which is understandably the right thing to do, and what I showed you that I just did. But what happens is that you become very, very much centered around this notion of constantly like a hamster wheel, that you need to constantly be learning and learning and learning. But what happens is that my advice would be is I think people jump in too soon. They think they want to learn about buy-to-lets. They think they want to learn about commercial conversion. They think they want to learn about deal sourcing. They think they want to learn about rent-to-rent. And so therefore they go and they say, right, that's what I'm going to learn about. It's like saying, I want to learn English GCSE. I want to learn maths GCSE, therefore I'm going to go and do that. But what people and women aren't doing specifically at the moment, and I'm seeing this day after day, DM after DM, is that they are rushing into it. And instead of actually starting with themselves. So what I have discovered this year by speaking to so many women within this industry is no one is starting with themselves. They're not saying to themselves, who am I? What is my desire? What is it that I'm looking for? What is it that I'm seeking? And then almost letting the strategy guide them in that. So, for example, the amount of times I have had women come forward to me saying that they want to get into rent-to-rent, for example, a cash flowing strategy, which is how I started. And I probably get majority of DMs after they hear my story of how I did it. But the more I talk to them, the more I realise that actually isn't what they want. Because rent-to-rent is a very fast-paced strategy where you need lots of time, effort. It's very quick, it's very fast, and there's a lot of rejection. And the more you speak to a person, you realise it doesn't suit their personality, it doesn't suit their resources, really key point, resources that they have available. You then say, this isn't going to work. Tell me about your other resources. And then they start telling you that actually that they've got this person that they've been speaking to for some time that's got a cash injection that they could put into a property of 250,000. I'm like, okay, so why are we talking about cash flowing strategies here when we could be talking about lump sums? We could talk about other things. And they're like, oh, I never even thought about that. So my top tip would be, in a very concise manner, start thinking about your resources and don't just rush to buy a course. Start with yourself first. And then once you know, and then you use your money effectively with the course that you learn, and then you can implement straight away, you are going to absolutely fly and use your money in the best way.
I love that. I love that so much. And do you know what? You can see from your journey of what you've done and how you've pivoted from one career into different businesses that you really love. You really love what you do. And I love that because I can see how passionate you are behind your businesses. It's not a hobby, it's a physical business. And I wanted to touch base on this because you and I meet so many women on a daily basis in these industries that they are sadly running glorified, expensive hobbies, and they're desperate to turn it into businesses. What's your take on that?
100%. And to be honest with you, Lisa, I think we're all guilty of this. Because
100%.
when you first start, it is essentially a concept. It's not a business, it's a concept. It's a dream, and it has to start as that. That's where we all start. And I think too many people rush to try and turn their dream into this 6-figure, 7-figure, multi-million pound business. And I'm like, whoa, stop. Let's go back to the beginning.
Hold the horses.
Hold the
Don't go too
horses.
fast.
So I think what happens is that they do become these glorified hobbies. And let's
Yeah.
face it, for a majority of people, myself included, for the first part of when I was trying to leave my full-time job, my property business was effectively a glorified hobby because I had a full-time job that I was in, and I was trying to almost do a bit of this property business where I could, and I could almost squeeze it into my day-to-day life. And therefore, that's not a business. You just have two jobs. And a lot of people are scared to admit that, or a lot of people push back at that. And I'm like, no, that's not a negative. I'm not trying to insult you. I'm trying to just give you the reality of your life. So if a person is in a full-time job and they're trying to set up another business at the side, I'm like, okay, so you now have two jobs. You know, and they're like, no, I'm a business owner. I'm like, no, you have two jobs.
9 to 5 PAYE.
Yep.
And you also have a side hustle, which is a passionate hobby that you're looking at, hopefully turning it into a business.
Absolutely. And the top tip that I was thinking what I could really provide today, and one of my biggest lessons, and actually this lesson came from somebody who actually taught me this lesson, and I'm going to pass it on to others listening to this, is they said, Athena, you need to treat your business like a business. And at first, I had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. I didn't quite realize it. I said, I do treat my business like a business. And she said, no, you don't. You treat it like a glorified hobby. And I really had to sit and I really had to learn what that meant. And so here's my top tip and my advice to everyone listening. When you're thinking about starting your business, the wonderful thing that you get to do is you get to think of all these ideas. That's the fun bit, right? I'm going to start this program. I'm going to start this community. Let's talk about Girls in Property, because Girls in Property is a business. Right. So let me give you some hardcore help here. So I thought, I want to start a podcast. By the way, podcasts don't make money. Let's just say that for what it is.
Let's just be really real here.
Podcasts don't make money. You do podcasts because you love what you do, okay?
Yeah.
So I started this podcast with pure and utter love because I wanted to give value and I wanted to help people. Again, not a business, Athena, not making money, okay? Then what happened was that girls started to be attracted to it. Girls started to really get into it. So therefore, we then went on to create our first ever event. Now, again, reality check. We had 50 women at that event, but we had no business set up. I did it with my friend Sophie originally. We paid for it out of our own pockets, our personal pockets, and I think we just about turned over. I think we actually made a slight loss. Again, no money, not a business.
But great party.
But great party. So then what happens is my friend then said to me, Athena, this doesn't work. It's not making any money. I've got other commitments. I've got other things to do. I don't think this is going to work. And I said, that's fine. I see you. And we part in the most beautiful way. And she supports Girls in Property to this day. She's one of my best friends. But she said to me, you know, if you're going to do this, you have to do this on your own. And I said, right, okay. And I sat there and I said to myself, there is no money coming in. There is only love. There is only passion. There is only hope for this. But I'm going to go and I'm going to turn this into something amazing. So that's exactly what I did. And I incorporated it October 2023. I trademarked it. Again, pumping money in, still no money being generated, therefore it's not a business. It's just an idea, it's just a concept. And so I thought, right, now what? And from there, I put on my first ever big event for 80 women. I put all of my money into it. I hoped and I prayed I'd sell tickets, which I did. And I made my first profit on an event, which I was like, yay! Yeah. But do you know what? Not being funny, it's still not going to feed you, is it?
No, it's just like, okay, the second event is better than the first event, but it's still not a business model.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I made like $5,000 for the year. I think that might last me about like a month. No, I'm lying. It'll probably last me about 3. But at the same time, it's like, what is this? So then you start to think to yourself, okay, now how are we really going to look at this? So what you've then got to do is you've got to sit down when it's your business and you've got to think to yourself, what are the things that generate me money into this business? Okay, so you sit down and you go, what is my recurring revenue? Where is it that money comes in on a recurring basis? Okay, membership, tick. Now sponsorship, tick. Where is it that money flows in every single month? And where is it that lump sums come in every single month? Okay, events, courses, online, courses program, one-to-one mentoring, tick, 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 tick. And then you're like, right, how is my cash flow going to work so that I can also plan for the future? So one thing me and you talk about all the time, Lisa, and you do it beautifully, is this notion of cash flow. So that, for example, if there was a sponsorship opportunity coming up, which I'm now faced with in May 2026, I know if I can afford it or not based on the cash flow that is coming in and out of the business. Because it's like, well, this is coming in and this is coming out. And I think what I used to do, and I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to nod their heads and go, Athena, I'm guilty. And so am I, ladies. I'm guilty too. And Lisa knows this. If someone was to say to me, well, how's your business doing? I'll go, well, I just look at my bank account and I think, oh, that's a decent amount of money. My business must be doing well. How many of us are looking at our profit and loss reports? How many of us are actually looking at our corporation tax and thinking about how we could be moving money around? How many of us are actually...
Wealth strategies.
Wealth strategy. This notion of cash flow into the business and wealth. And you say all the time, Lisa, you say money flow in, money flow out, money flow in, money flow out.
Money flow out.
And it's only now, and I mean, what am I in now? So I set it up October 23, we're now just going into 26, so that's taken me 3 years.
Yeah.
With the right people, really key, the right people to look at me and say, okay, Athena, I get what you were, and I get that you were just trying to build the business and pumping into marketing and pumping into getting shown. But now, how are you actually going to really take this to the next level for Girls in Property? How are you actually going to set this aside? And how are you going to start to remove yourself from the business? Because that's another question, is are you just a busy fool and have you just got a job? Or are you a business owner that the business can run without you? So hopefully that gives a few top tips.
I love that. So effectively, it's treat your business like a business and absolutely love what you do day in, day out. It's so true. Do you know what? I speak to so many women as well, and I say to them, you've got a wonderful, gorgeous website. It's beautiful, but where's your pipeline of work? And they're like, well, I actually don't have any clients currently, but I'm hoping to get some. And I'm like, okay, well, if there's no pipeline of work there, or you don't know what you're going to be working on, or deals or projects or client, what's your forecast looking like next year? What's your 2026 forecast, whether that's the first quarter or from 2026 going into 2027? How much money do you want to make? Oh, well, I don't really know. And I'm like, okay, well, what are your services like? Well, they're a bit of this, bit of that. So you kind of know your services, but you don't have a cash flow forecast. You don't know what you want to predict for the next financial year. Talk to me about your marketing and visibility strategies. Well, I don't really have anything in place. So then we turn around and have other conversations, and I'm sure you have them all the time as well. And we regularly talk about this, like we'll meet up in London and we'll have these gorgeous mastermind days together in our business about solid foundations. You have to build a business on solid foundations, don't you? Having a business that you absolutely love to drive and get you out of bed in the morning and keep alive, it has to be built on solid foundations. And if you don't understand those, then you effectively don't have a business model.
Yeah, and do you know what, Lisa? I'm listening to you there and I'm thinking to myself, what's also important to say is it's very easy for us to sit here and say, this is what you should do and this is how you should do it. But I just had a moment there as you were speaking where I remembered myself when I first started. And the reality actually is, ladies, like let's just face this, is it's very difficult. It's very difficult because we're not taught business at school. No one's taught it. We're taught like Pythagoras' theory. So what you end up doing when you're on your own is you're effectively just trying to fan the flames on your own. Because let's face it, when you start a business, you can't afford staff. So you literally are. The other day I was listening to a podcast and someone said when you start a business, you have 180 different roles within your business. And I was like, that sounds about right.
Yeah. Wear all the hats.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about me at the start there as you were speaking. And I was like, if I was listening to this podcast now and I was at the start of my journey, I'd want someone just to say, hold on a second. It's actually really difficult to do because you need to just throw yourself into exposure to it and letting people know that you even exist.
Yeah.
And like there's only so much energy you can give. So I think what I would say to people is this, and this is certainly what I did, 100%. My advice would be, there is no point being the best kept secret. It is a waste of your time. You could have the best website, you could have the best logo, you could be actually the best property investor, the best interior designer, you could be that. But if nobody knows that you exist and nobody is there to buy your services, what's the point? So actually my advice would be, worry about what we're talking about maybe in a couple of months and maybe down the line. And for now, just get yourself out there, just get yourself exposed, because let's face it, you can't start thinking about managing your money until you make money. So my top tip would be, treat your business like a business and actually just really, really go for it. Market yourself and visibility and getting yourself out there. And I'll tell you another top tip, which is treat your business like a business. And I think this is what my mentor actually was really trying to say to me was, when you're a business owner, there is no office. There is no, here's my office hours, here's my cutoff, here's this. Almost become 24-hour business owner. So I'd be responding to DMs, for example, at 11 p.m. at night, 12 p.m. at night, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., because let's face it, as entrepreneurs, you're always awake. And she was saying to me, you're not treating it like a business. You're treating it like you're just chatting to your friends. And she's like, you're teaching them bad behavior. You're teaching them that there are no boundaries with you. And actually what you should be doing is you should be saying, this is a business. This is Girls in Property. You can't get access to me at 12 a.m. in the morning. You can gain access to me from Monday to Thursday, 9 till 5:30. Thank you very much. Off I go and I live my life. I burnt out twice doing my business. I burnt out twice. I've lost relationships along the way as a result. And this is the reality of what being a business owner is. And I wish that people talk about it more and say, treat the business like a business and not a glorified hobby.
Do you know what? I can really relate to that. I remember the very first business I did was supporting British textile and home designers. I had a website, and when I look back now, it wasn't a business. It didn't have solid foundations. It was just a really glorified hobby. But because I was pumping so much into this hobby and not focusing on it being a business, we can't hide away from these things. We've got to talk about them. And I know both in your coaching circles with the women that you coach and mentor, and mine as well, we talk about the implementation of structure, boundaries and energy, because both of us, we're very much on the same page when we talk about the internal work that we do to ourselves as a business owner. Both of us are very passionate in mindset as well. And I always remember, and I think it was about 2 businesses in, where I really thought about business has to all be about strategy. I never really thought about the foundations as much, but I never even thought that internal conditioning, priming, or energetic work would have a play at all until I got exposed to it. And this is something we talk about a lot with you and I, is pouring into your own cup and setting your boundaries. That's perfect that you said that about the times, because you will burn yourself out if you don't put boundaries and non-negotiables in place.
100%. And I tell you another thing also, just to help everyone, is the reason I burnt out, and I'm sure again a lot of people who agree with this, is because you convince yourself that you're working really hard when you start a business. You go, I've worked really hard today. I've worked 12 hours in my business today. Yeah, but what did you do with those 12 hours?
How did you spend those 12 hours?
How did you? But let's not bull crap ourselves here, right? So you convince yourself that you've worked really hard because you're exhausted at the end of the day and because you've worked these hours. But you've actually only contributed to your business, on average, I'm going to go maybe 2 to 4, because the rest of it has been procrastinating. I always use this analogy whenever I mentor, because I'm a massive Disney nerd. I say, you're flapping around like Flounder from The Little Mermaid. You haven't got a Scooby-Doo what you're doing, and you're literally throwing at a wall and hope it sticks. That is not using your time effectively. And you are lying to yourself. You're lying if you think that you are working 12 hours a day and you are this badass bitch and you are burnout and I've got this badge of honor because I'm going to bed exhausted and look at me work so hard. I've been there, I've bought the t-shirt, I've burnt it twice. Don't do it. You're better off, I swear to you, please listen, this is the best advice that I can ever give to you. You are better off really focusing for 2 to 3 hours in your business a day, dedicating that time and then going for a walk or living your life. You are so much better doing that because you will be healthier for it and you will be more creative. It's the best advice I can give you.
I love that. And I think it's so important, to really be mindful of ourselves and how we operate within this business model. And going back to saying, treating your business like a business, it needs to be thought about. If I am burnt out and I am overstimulated, actually, I'm not giving the business what it deserves. I am actually damaging that, because the person that is behind the wheel of that business is effectively not driving the train properly or the car properly. It's just going to crash and burn. So then what? The business just lies there for 2 or 3 weeks while you're in complete burnout mode, and you just go back in and pick it up again.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes life happens to you. And earlier this year, there was a time where I actually had to step away from the business for a week. I just wasn't in the right place to do it. And what was weird was, and people who know me well will know that I was very uncomfortable with this, I was forced to watch what the business would do if I wasn't in the business, and it forced me to watch it. And I'm now in the position where, because of cash flow and because I structured the business in the right way, I'm able to hire in a team. And that team literally picked me up and went, off you go, we've got this.
Yeah.
And they did the calls, they did the structure, they did the emails. I'd look at my emails thinking, oh my God, what am I going to come back to? It was done. Because they were the business, and the business can operate without me. Yeah. And now I sit here going, I think I've actually got a little bit of a business, Lisa.
I wouldn't call it a little bit of a business. I think there's a multi-6-figure, beautiful powerhouse of a business. Because I remember when we met up in London back in October, and we were going through all those beautiful conversations and talking about financials, and we both had a moment and we're like, yes, look at it, it's a multi-6-figure business. So
we had a financial day, and which, again, admitting, Lisa said, when was the last time you did this? And I'm very honest and said, I haven't done this in a while, Lisa. And you were like, that's not okay. I'm like, I know. And then we did it together, and I was like, holy crap. I was like, it's actually doing quite well.
It is doing amazing. I love it. And it's because you treat your business like a business, and that you really love what you do. You love what you do so much that you're happy with also consistent tasks that need to be done on a weekly basis to keep that business operational, and you have the discipline behind it.
Well, this is the thing. I see it so many times. I really do. And this would be a tip to you if you're listening to this today as well, is if you're sitting there and you've got this business, you feel like you're pushing it, you feel like you're forcing it, you feel like something just isn't working and something isn't clicking, my advice to you would be to sit very, very quietly on your own and really think to yourself, do I love what I'm doing? Do I love this business? Because I'm telling you, that's where you've got to start with this. It's not that the clients aren't there. It's not that it's the wrong season to be selling in. It's not all these excuses that you come up with. It's because you don't love it. Because if you loved it, on those days that get really tough, because let's face it, as entrepreneurs, we have not chosen the easy journey here. We've chosen a bloody hard journey. On those days where it gets really tough and you think, I can't do this, I can't go on all of this, bit of Celine Dion there, what you actually think to yourself is, but I love what I do. And, it's why I started the podcast. I didn't start the podcast to make money. I started the podcast because I love giving value. I love talking to people. I didn't even know who was going to be listening to it, Lisa, but I knew that I had this purpose and this drive. And from there now, the podcast has taken a life of its own. And of course, you're sponsoring the podcast. And
I know.
It's amazing. If you don't start with love, and if you don't start with you and your mission and your purpose, what even is the point? And I'll tell you this, I remember there was a moment, someone said to me, Athena, when did you know that you wanted to get out of the rent-to-rent business? Because I built this business up, and it was my friend who turned to me and she said to me, you don't want to do this anymore. She's like, I can see it in you. She's like, your love has gone for this. And I said, 100%. I don't want to manage tenants anymore. I don't want to be in the rain waiting for viewings, for people that tell me they're going to be there in 10 minutes and then tell me they don't come because it's raining. I don't want to deal with landlords who speak, badly to me and deal with all the rejection. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to build my business that cash flows me money, and then I want to build wealth through property, and I want to build assets. And as soon as you sit there quietly and you say, what do I want? What's right for me? And by the way, different seasons, different aspirations. Like, know that seasons come and go and be aware of that. You don't have to stay where you are. You can pivot. But if you sit quietly and listen intuitively to yourself, it will guide you. So I just want you to know that just because you've started something, it doesn't mean you've got to go there. And sometimes it takes a person to almost, and I hope this gives you that in this moment, it almost gives you permission to say, you don't have to do this anymore. I know you've put money into it. I know you've put a year into it. I know you've put even 2 years into it. It's okay to let it go. There's better things out there for you and you will find your thing. It doesn't have to be this. Because if you can't get through those tough days because the love isn't there, and you can't get through those days where you think, no, I've got my purpose, I've got my why, I've got my mission, you should not be doing what you're doing. And that's my opinion.
I love that. I really love that. And I think so many women listening to this today, and men, are going to take all of that away into 2026 with them, and maybe even over the Christmas period, really sit and think, what do they want in their businesses from 2026? And how do they want to be ending the year? And actually, if they've spent 2025 with the intentions they set at the beginning, and those intentions have still not been fulfilled, then maybe that's a little graceful permission card to say it's okay to step away and pivot and do something else. So yeah, before we wrap up, what's the one last thing you would like to leave the listeners with today?
Happy Christmas. Have a great festive break, and make sure that if you're with your family, you enjoy it as well. Remember why you're doing it. There's no point sort of all the hustle and the grind if you don't also enjoy it. So like I said, don't do the 12 hours in the business. Nobody can hold the concentration for that long. Have your time. Really think about your energy. When are you the most productive? Are you better productive in the morning, the evening? When is that time? Get an egg timer, use your time productively, and then dedicate yourself. When you're working, you are working. When you're a mum, go and be a mum. And don't have this guilt between the two of them. Don't go, oh, I'm with my children, I feel guilty about the fact I'm not working. And then when you're working, be guilty about the fact that you're not with your kids. Like, that is no life to lead. Just go and dedicate yourself in that moment to who your identity is in that moment, and go and have the best Christmas. This is the perfect time to recalibrate, the perfect time to think about things. Treat your business like a business, set those boundaries for yourself, for others, and just go and be absolutely fabulous. And if you need anything, you know I am, and I'm sure that we'll share all of the socials, and you're happy to reach out to me.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Athena, so much for coming onto the podcast. Have the most amazing Christmas, and I cannot wait to see you and support you and be part of your journey in 2026.
Amazing. Happy Christmas, everyone, and check out Girls in Property. See you
Absolutely.
soon.
And Athena's details will be all on the show notes. So head to the show notes and you can see where you can follow Athena in the Girls in Property. There'll be a link to her podcast. Dive into it. There is the most amazing episodes full of information to get you started in the property industry. And happy Christmas to all our gorgeous followers. We will see you for day 3 back on the podcast tomorrow. Take care.